All right, welcome back to another
West Coast Davengers.
And today, my fine friends,
we're looking at the very best of Venom, which features a reprint of Amazing Spider-Man 300 by Todd Mcfarlane. And you know what they say, what I say.
when you see Todd,
You buy Todd.
yeah.
Plus Sam Kieth, plus Mark Bagley. So why don't we put this under the microscope? But why don't I say hello to my friend Shawn, Japan Book Hunter.
Yes, great to have you here, Dave. It's awesome. It's been a great MANGA QUEST so far, MANGA QUEST 2024, and we've been out in them streets getting some.
Hauling.
Yes. We hauled so hard yesterday that my back hurt this morning. Like, no lie, my back. I was like, do I have sciatica or something?
I woke up this morning not wondering where I was because I was so exhausted.
Yeah. We actually talked about meeting up last night, and both of us were so beat from hauling all those books. I had 3 bags of books yesterday, people. So, and I can tell you, Dave had quite a few himself.
Yes, plus I won something that you'll see soon.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, so why don't we put this under the microscope?
All right, let's get into it.
All right, so I didn't know this book existed until I got here. And obviously, it came out this year because the new Venom movie just came out, which I have no interest whatsoever in watching. But I am interested in seeing this book. And what brought me to it was I didn't even realize there was Todd in here at first. This is a Sam Kieth cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you know that Todd was in here?
When I started to investigate, I noticed there's Todd on the OB with Venom, and then there's Sam Kieth, and then there's Mark Bagley.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do. You gotta pay attention to those OBs, man.
The OBs tell you everything you need to know, even if you can't speak the language.
Yeah, and of course here on the back side, it gives us a little bit of background in Japanese on like what's in here and who's in here. But again, if you're like a non-Japanese speaker, then you have to go by the visuals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does it say Todd McFarlane's name anywhere here?
It says... It's just talking about which numbers are in here and which titles are in here.
Right.
So it's not talking about who worked on them, but we do have something in here that does mention Todd, which is it comes with this little supplemental, sometimes we call it furoku in Japanese, and these furoku are used to give us some extra added information. So we have
Which I love the title, The Venom Infections.
The Venom Infections, and in these, so we have a summary of the book, and then they break down each page, not every page, but key pages, page 3, the cover, page 4, and if you flip it over this way, then we also get some details about panels on pages.
Yeah.
Panel 4, page 11. We also get some information on, for example, page 33, panel 2, who was working on it at that time. And some background on writers, art directors, and of course the artists that are in here.
Sure.
So unless if you look at this, you probably wouldn't know that Todd is in here until you actually go through the book.
Right, and so that's the Venom Infections, which is a phrase that's never been used in American comics to my knowledge.
That's cool.
But what's cool about this, and very much like books in America, you take off the slipcover just to see, and you get this really dope image of Venom by Todd. I would have bought this book immediately if the cover was like this. Then because the back has another image that Todd drew from ASM 300, which is the first full appearance of Venom. I mean, ASM 299's got that last page splash. I also find it funny that they're advertising DC books in a Marvel book. You know, like there is no, and then you open it up and you get some more modern stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get Sam Kieth right there, which is an advertisement for this book.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Well, it's just because in Japan, whether it's Marvel or DC, it's just Amekomi.
Sure.
American comics.
American
I mean, that's
comics.
all. It's just that's the genre. So we'll get it squared up there.
So we're looking at the table of contents here, and it shows us, Amazing Spider-Man 300, Dream a Little Dream of Me, which was a Sam Kieth Marvel Comics Presents, which Marvel Comics Presents was 3 stories, 1 book. That's the first time Venom and Wolverine meet. Bride of Venom, which is a Mark Bagley Amazing Spider-Man 375. And then the Venom Clause, which is very interesting because That's not how you like. We're not talking. I mean, unless it is a Christmas story.
It's not a Christmas story. I know we're getting on the holiday season here. It just came out, but
Yeah, and so this is new. Obviously, like I said, here's the cover for Amazing Spider-Man 300. Is this? Did you ever collect Amazing Spider-Man when you were?
You know, when I was a kid, I did not, because I never collected really Marvel and DC. I was always going down to the Pike Place Market, and I was digging up stuff like the Fabulous Freak Brothers, Fritz the Cat, Venom, which I saw you had a bunch of recently. That brought back memories, like, because I was into war stuff for some reason.
Interesting.
Psycho as a child.
Yeah, well.
And it's probably because my dad had a bunch of war movies around, like on VHS, like Platoon, Hamburger Hill, Full Metal Jacket, stuff like that. So I got really into war stuff when I was a kid. And so it's like I have just a big, huge gap in my knowledge.
Right. Well, this is, McFarlane takes over Amazing Spider-Man 2 issues prior. They tease Venom in a last page, full page splash on ASM 299, and then this is the big book. Now, funny thing is, I bought this book at a show when I was younger because it had come out, and I was going back to collect it all. I still have my same copy.
Oh, really?
And it's still in beautiful shape. It's
really?
a near mint copy, yeah.
And that was a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, if this came out in 89, I probably bought my copy in 91, 92, 93. Oh. Yeah, so I have that same one. This is a top 5 most iconic Todd McFarlane cover, and it's probably a top 5 most iconic Amazing Spider-Man cover.
Okay.
And it's been homaged to death. So yeah, here we go. So there's $2.99. Then he, because Venom exists, they put Spider-Man in his original costume, and that's why Todd wanted to do the book, because he didn't want to draw the black suit.
He didn't want to do the black suit.
No, he hated the black suit.
He was like, I want the classic.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So David Michelini, who's the writer, they came up with Venom, and that's a reason to get Spider-Man out of the black costume and into the red and blue. So I thought this was pretty interesting that, it's all in Japanese, but Venom is not.
Yeah. So a lot of times what will happen when things get translated in Japan is the text will get translated, but the sound effects won't, because it costs so much more to go in and change those, right? And it depends on how much there are, but changing a clack in the background is, it costs money, right?
Sure.
So I'm imagining that's why they left the Venom here.
Is Venom's name in Japanese here, is it different? Is it if you're translating it, does it say Venom?
They don't. Yeah, it's just in katakana, like Venom.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So instead of Venom, and they're not going to translate it into Doku, like poison or something like that, which would be the Japanese word.
That'd be cool if they called him Poison.
Yeah.
So what I do like about this, and the original issues, the newsprint, it's nice to have. But at this time, the paper was shit and the printing was shit. And if 9 out of 10 copies of this run of Amazing Spider-Man, if you open it up, it's either yellow from originally. There was
not even from time.
Yeah. And some overprinting. So this is probably the first time they ever recolored it. But this was not done digitally. So this is a very old recolor job of it.
It looks real. It's got that OG vibe to it. It's got that old school vibe to the color that you wouldn't get with digital recoloring.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So, but this is, it's so early on in his career from Spider-Man. He's kind of fully formed on this in a way, but he's inking himself in this. So that's where you get the best Todd, is when Todd inks himself, and he was doing 2 books a month at this point. He was doing Hulk and Spider-Man at the same time.
At the same time?
Yeah. So, but it's pretty cool to see this because, I don't know what they're saying, but you can kind of read along. But
daijoubu da yo. It's I'm okay. Onegai daijoubu. And one more thing that we should mention is, because I was almost going to start reading backwards.
Yeah.
This is not flipped for the Japanese audience.
Right.
We're reading left to right, obviously, as you can see here. Whereas once in a while, you'll get things imported, and they'll just remaster the whole thing, flip everything, and then it reads right to left.
Which can ruin the translation because of the page turn is supposed to be one way. It's you page turn it this way, and if you were reading the other way, you'd see what happens on this page first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then also it's same thing with the speech bubbles. The speech bubbles are laid out in a way for it to read originally. Of course, bigger speech bubble, smaller speech
Right.
bubble, but then when you flip it, then you only have this much space for these words. No, it doesn't work like, so like they have to redo all the
have to
speech bubbles.
recalibrate everything.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
interesting too, where it's like they're showing the headlines in English, but they're also showing it in Japanese too.
Yeah, they kind of little subtitles down here for the headlines.
Yeah, but I'm really impressed at how good this looks. I mean, just like the first ever trade paperback that they released in the 80s of this story. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like it's such an iconic book, but it's not a super action book until the end. But you're getting, the origin of how the symbiote got a hold of him, and then he realized that you can get it off with sound. So I don't know if you remember, but when Ed and Jim would put Amazing Spider-Man McFarlane stuff under the microscope, they talk about his kind of use of Otomo stuff, and and when I interviewed him, he talked about like he was looking at Akira a lot at this time and doing the photo backgrounds. Like there's one issue where apparently he just basically ripped off a page of Akira.
Well, the funny thing is Otomo also ripped off Miyaya.
Oh, really?
Kazuhiko Miyaya. He read him when he was around like 12, 13 years old. He did extremely realistic, what we call gekiga, or real picture manga.
Yeah.
And his buildings, his streets, architecture were like to the T. And when you go and see Akira, Domu, like the apartment complex of Domu, like every window, perfect, right? The perspective is perfect. And he ripped off Miyaya for that.
And for, I would assume, the reason also to do that is to cut time off, shave time. So you can see this is definitely a photocopy,
photostat or something.
Yeah, because this is Todd drawing, building in perspective, and this is just, a photocopy. But, and you see the little shortcuts here and there and just all the things. But I just, it's very interesting because the word bubbles, because, they're doing the words digitally. They're a little bit smaller, so there's more space in the world bubbles, but it distracts you a little bit less from the art. But there's Eddie Brock trying to follow Spidey. What's he saying there? Where'd he go?
He's like Kieta, like he disappeared because he's following him down a dark, like a dead end alley, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's gone because
he spidered it.
Yeah, he web slung his way out of there, right?
Look at Todd always drawn Mary Jane pretty well. I always liked it. The hair, though, my God, he just drew so much hair.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot there.
This apartment that they're getting. I mean, she was a supermodel at the time, but this apartment would be like a $15 million Manhattan apartment. I don't know if she would be able to afford that.
Yeah, she would have to be Cindy Crawford.
Yeah. And then we get over to the May Parker household and for the dinner scene. Does any of, like, if you're reading this as you're reading this, any of this stuff come off translation that you can see? Like, it just doesn't make sense?
So far, no, everything's pretty good. So the problem that I have with translations is it's hard for me to read American comics in Japanese sometimes because I feel the English in it.
Yeah.
Because I was born in America. I'm an English native speaker. Yeah. But then on the opposite hand, when I read manga and it's translated into English, I find that weird too because I know what the Japanese is supposed to be. Especially if it's something I've read before. A Hino Hideshi Bug Boy or something like that. Like Panorama of Hell by or something like that by Hino. Then I know I've already read it in Japanese, and then if I read the English, I'm like, this is off.
So you're saying it would get lost in translation?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And it's just it's the translations are great sometimes.
Sure.
But it's just the feeling.
Yeah.
There's something about the nuance of it that just seems off.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, my Japanese, I've been here for 21 years. It's pretty good. But sometimes when I read a translation of an American comic in Japanese, there might be some nuances that a Japanese person might pick up that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Just because I wasn't born here. You
know
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but as far as the translation quality goes, it seems spot on.
This is pretty funny. Like you were saying, they're not gonna take the onomatopoeias and the sound effects and change them. So you get an entire panel with no Japanese on it.
And that's a big problem for both languages. One reason, Japanese has tons of onomatopoeias.
Oh, yeah.
Way more than English, right?
Yeah, it's like 10 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, just the sound of rain, there's probably 20 words to describe different sounds of rain, you know what I mean? And so, like, trying to translate those into English is very difficult. So a lot of times you'll just see the sound effects left alone.
Yeah, I just kind of skipped that part of reading Akira. You know, when I read Akira and it's got like the glossary for all the sound effects, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I know what the sound effect's trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, there's not a ton of action because we're introducing the fact that Venom is his arch nemesis and wearing the costume that Peter was wearing. But here you can see like photo background here, but this is where he kind of attacks him, and that's the first kind of like this is
encounter that they have.
Yeah, and it's great. Like Todd defined an entire generation.
Those eyes are great, man.
And the difference between them, like you could see like he's like he's shocked, and then that's just evil.
Yeah,
it's
pure evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but it's a great book. I've always enjoyed flipping through it, but getting to see it, with the translation is just, it feels a little bit special. And I wonder how it's probably only been reprinted one time before this in Japan, and that would have been probably in the Marvel X magazine, because they did the whole run of Amazing Spider-Man and Marvel X, from what I can tell. But colors remain like I said, that it remains to be a really vibrant, but not overly digital vibrant. What's he saying here?
Imada, like now.
Huh.
Like, so it could be in English. It could be like now, or let's go, or it's coming.
Yeah, because he dives for the gun, so he's like telling himself like this is
okay, now's the time.
Shot. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
But I wonder how many people in Japan pick this up and realize like the significance of what they're looking at here.
Yeah, because like you said, and Japan's famous for this, they did this with the X-Men anime in the 90s. They did it with the release of the first X-Men movie, is they put out something around it for promotion.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what this is for the newest Venom movie. And sometimes it's original art by Japanese like manga creators.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just an import. Sometimes it's a collection like this. And I guess it depends on budget and who the art director is and what they want to do,
Sure. I mean, they got a lot of Deadpool stuff here for the movie that came out this year.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I'm imagining whoever did the art direction for this, they're like, what can we do that's the most Venom?
Yeah.
To promote Venom.
And you got to get Papa Venom. You got to get Todd, the Todd father. Love this panel. Love just the I mean, he was a brute, and he outmatches Spider-Man, but Spider-Man outsmarts him with this sonic gun and knocks Eddie Brock / Venom out, but only for a little bit. Yeah. He literally gets up, and I love that sound effect. That's one of my favorite. I think pretty much anybody that loves Spider-Man loves that sound effect, and beats the snot out of him. This is a little wonky. This panel, he was still Todd was still finding his design for Venom in this issue.
How old was he at this time, you think?
Probably 20. Yeah, 21 years old, so somewhere in there.
So still kind of growing,
yes,
we could say.
Yes. He'd only been with DC for a run of Infinity Inc., goes on to Hulk, and then he gets Amazing Spider-Man while he's on Hulk. And this was bi-monthly.
Oh, okay,
so
okay. So
he must have been working, 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
7 days a week, just getting page after page out. You get the classic Eddie with the priest suit on, because they're in a church, and he's got him in the bell, and, Spider-Man probably just saying, how am I going to get out of this? And if I can reach it, I can, imagine he's saying something like that right there. If I can just get my hand free.
So he's like, if I want to live, this is all I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the only thing I can do.
I wish I could read this in Japanese just to see like it almost feels like the translation into English feels almost like an instruction manual.
Yeah.
It's a little bit stiffer.
Well, that Fritz the Cat that that you saw in one of my videos. The cool thing about that is they have the English and Japanese together. So they change the speech bubbles to Japanese, but they leave the English below each strip so that you know where the original text was, so that you can compare the two.
That's cool.
So, and they've done a bunch of bilingual editions of stuff here for actual Japanese people learning English.
That's good.
For comics and manga and stuff. Fist of the North Star or City Hunter in bilingual, Devilman bilingual.
Oh, wow.
Those exist, hard to find because of course they did low print runs because there's not a ton of people using manga to study a foreign language.
And people who bought those to learn probably beat the shit out of those books and read them.
Oh yeah, and highlighted in them. And so, but this one is like "Iki no biru ni wa kou suru shika," which means "shika nai desu." But in Japanese, when you're in a tense situation, they'll cut off the sentence.
Right.
So instead of "shika nai," "shika." And then it's like, am I getting there? Am I getting there?
And we turn the page, and he does get there, and he breaks free. And he says, "Holy shit!" No, I don't know if that actually.
Yatta, I did it.
I did it. Well, close
got
enough.
It. I imagine Peter Parker would be like, "Got it."
Yeah.
Something like that.
And then they're getting ready to square off again, but he takes down Venom, and I think we get on the next page. Yeah, he overpowers him. He gets the symbiote kind of weak, and then gets him off. And it's interesting. It's just like, all right, time to call the Fantastic Four and get Eddie Brock and the symbiote trapped. And then pretty much, I like the way that he draws the thing. He's a little kind of more terrifying looking.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, not just like a rectangular head,
Yeah. And then we get the little Felix the Cat cameo, which she puts in every book, and Todd gets his wish because Mary Jane says, "Hey, look, Tiger." Does she say tiger anywhere here?
She does not.
Bummer.
She's like, went to Germany, costume. Yeah, no tiger. No tiger in here. And no tora, which is Japanese for tiger.
And so then they celebrate. And there's that famous last panel, which was homaged in the last Spider-Man movie. And Todd getting to celebrate putting him back in the blue and red in a photostat of New York City in the snow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it leads us to Amazing Spider-Man 301. But this is really cool. Like, I'm glad that it looks as good because it could have been way too digitally colored. But they did a good job with this because it's not full on glossy paper. It's like a matte gloss. It looks really good.
Yeah, it does. And the color, like I was saying in the beginning, it's just got like that. I mean, the paper feel isn't there, but it almost looks like it has a paper feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You remember Sam Kieth because he created the Max, and the Max was on MTV.
Yeah.
And
Liquid Television and all of that back, and then got its own series. And we were talking about this earlier, and I was like, I just saw something recently, a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, the Max.
Yeah.
I forgot about the Max.
He was second wave Image Comics, so he wasn't one of the founders, but he was second wave. But after Weapon X and Barry Windsor Smith and Marvel Comics Presents, Sam Kieth jumps in and becomes the artist for, I don't know, it's like maybe 30 covers and 15 or so interiors. But this is where he does this Venom Wolverine story, and it's the first time Venom and Wolverine meet. But like, you go from what Venom was with McFarlane and Eric Larson, but then there's this, and it's just he's just a hulking mass, and this is kind of like his style of storytelling too, Sam Kieth, because like it's very strange, it's very trippy, it doesn't really seem like it's part of actual reality, and Wolverine, with the tattered costume, but yeah, this is like, is there anything style wise that like you can see that maybe is like somebody that you would be like, oh, this kind of reminds me of so and so mangaka?
Oh yeah, as far as manga goes, man, did anyone have a style like this?
Yeah,
I mean, of course, like here in Japan for action manga, it tends to be like more like cop stories or more realistic stuff, like stuff that's like more based in reality that a salaryman would read
Right.
on the train that would be exciting rather than more towards like the comic book fantasy side of things, you know. But gag manga, I do see a lot more like of the twisted style.
Right,
And
because
like,
that's what this is.
yeah, exactly. I was trying to think if there's anyone in the horror field that does anything even close, but not off the top of my head.
I would say that, you know, Sam Kieth is one of those guys. He's just one of the most unique artists, I think, ever to grace the medium, no matter the country.
And you know, you get like such a wild style, almost graffiti style with some characters, and then you get perfect jaguar, and tiger, and lion. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like he's drawing for a children's like you know, science book or something.
It's very strange. And his panel layout, I mean, there's almost, you know, like his panel layout's wild. I mean, you look, there is no, you know, panel border on this top, and, you know, you kind of get the separation of panels with the words. But, you know, the way he drew Venom is just absolutely fierce and nightmarish. And the way he drew Wolverine was one of the reasons why I think a lot of people latched onto his artwork at a young age. But I believe the character Nightmare is behind this whole thing. And can't say I know too much about the character Nightmare. First appears in Doctor Strange books, Strange Tales, somewhere in the late 60s. But, I mean, look at that Wolverine.
I know it's the perfect Wolverine squat,
Yeah.
but definitely.
And everybody talks, I mean, like, he drew Wolverine super hairy, and as, you know, I mean, he drew women's figures very curvy. Just so much going on these pages. Look at this. I mean,
It almost seems like across, I mean, with like the women's style, like the curvy women, it's almost like 60s, 70s underground comics meets 1990s graffiti.
Yeah.
Meets, you know, Marvel, meets a little bit of everything in there,
which
you know?
makes sense because Sam Kieth is a Sacramento guy, so he's not far from the Bay Area where all that stuff was really happening.
So
Yeah.
he was probably influenced by a lot of that stuff back then.
Definitely,
You know, the
definitely.
Crumbs and the last
last
gasp guys, yeah.
Yeah, like
and ladies.
Spain Rodriguez or something like that. But yeah, I just always loved this run. And, you know, we're like 3 issues into this, and that's the first we've seen of Venom drawn by Sam Kieth swinging, you know, webs. So, and it kind of turns into a team up, I guess. But look at this I mean, he was drawing stuff like this at the Max.
I mean, this looks like something straight out of like, you know, heavy metal or from, you know, early 90s or something like that, you know?
Like I would imagine
Hard fantasy.
anybody that's a fan of even the weird art that you have in here would be a fan of this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know? So yeah, I just wanted to flip through that, and then the only other see, look at that.
Oh dude, that's an amazing page.
Yeah, and he would go on to do a bunch of Batman Joker books, so it's like
You can see the Joker's coming out right there, right?
Yeah, I mean
Oh, this is cool. I mean, like, it's almost like we always talk about how Kaze Shinobu copied a lot of, like, the Philippe Joulet kind of style of, like, symmetry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you almost get that same kind of a vibe here with the opposing pages.
and it's just it's such a brilliant layout that kind of defies all logic of layouts, you know? You're I don't even know what's really happening.
Yeah.
But
Crazy.
he would take those talents and create the Max, and the Max would go on to run 35 issues and become an animated series. And, you know, Sam Kieth became a legend in his own right. But this is the only, like, this last page doesn't look like either maybe he did layouts that somebody inked it, or this is just a very different looking image than everything else. I mean, the layout makes sense, but this Wolverine face doesn't exactly make sense for what we've seen. But, and then we don't need to really go through this, but this is Amazing Spider-Man 375, Mark Bagley, who I recently had on the channel, and he would go on to do more Spider-Man books than anybody in history.
Oh.
He did probably about 75 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, 150 Ultimate Spider-Man, and then a bunch more beating out probably Romita Sr. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of pages.
3 decades worth of, 4
a
decades
lot
worth of
of
Spider-Man.
pages.
So, but, you know, it's not a super special issue for me, so we can just, we can just
Wrap it up
wrap
here.
it up.
I like, still going back for the credits, they put the credits in English here. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, writer, penciler, and so on. And then they put it in Japanese down here. They leave Bride of Venom, and then they just put a little teeny subtitle for Bride of Venom here.
Yeah.
And the Venom is in, of course, katakana. It's just trying to pronounce the Japanese pronunciation. And then Buenom no Hanayome. Hanayome is the traditional way of saying bride.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird. Why wouldn't you just say bridal? Because people say bride
yeah.
and like that, but they're using like the old school. So sometimes little things like that, I'm like,
They get a little confused.
yeah, exactly. It's Claus.
Yeah,
you know, like
does make sense. He's Venom Claus. But yeah, so and then I think there's one other issue in here that I don't know this. Oh yeah, it is.
Oh, the holiday special.
So it was the Venom Claus.
We should have done our research a little bit better. That is so funny. God, that is funny. We've been sitting here making fun of some poor translator, which is, his name was Ishikawa. Ishikawa Yujin is the man who translated this, and he's the only name that I recognize. We went through everything else before, and it's like the book designer or like the layout designer. They're just working for the publishing house.
Right.
But yeah,
That's really funny.
That's funny, man.
So there it is, the Venom Claus.
Holiday Special 1995. I wonder if they intentionally put this in here because it would be released in fall, pre-holiday season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, because it's not a special issue that I can think of that anybody ever really cites.
Really cares too much about.
So, but that's that.
Oh man, I might have to pick one of these up just for the Christmas aspect, because I only have probably 3 or 4, because Christmas isn't a big thing in Japan.
Sure.
You know, we celebrate Nenmatsu, the New Year's holidays, and year-end holidays, and stuff like that. So I've only found about 3 manga in my quests that have Santa in them. Yeah. And one of them is actually my friend Kojima Miyako. She did a horror manga where a Santa goes around with an axe, slaying elementary school students while they go to school. And of course, little girls, because Japanese horror manga is shoujo, and it's made for girls, young girls. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Let's see if there's anything on the last pages here. Besides the security thing, and then we looked at the back cover, or maybe we didn't. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
So, but yeah, this is the best. I keep calling it the very best of Venom, but it's just called the best of Venom.
The best of Venom.
Yeah.
That was a great flip through. It was fun to go through and take a look at it. And you know, again, I've said this 100 times on your channel, and when we've talked before, is like I'm so removed from the American comic book scene, that when stuff pops up over here and somebody can actually break it down for me, because you know I've been here 21 years knee-deep in manga, that it's always exciting.
Yeah, and it's always fun to flip through books, and it's fun to flip through my first physically flip through a book with you for the first time ever.
Yes, because everything we do is always remote.
Yes.
And we will continue to do these remote things, you know, the East meets West stuff.
Yes.
But we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in person while you're here, my friend.
Yes, and you're gonna show me some stuff that's gonna make my eyes bleed, so I'm excited for that.
Oh, dude, my eyes bleed every day, baby.
Well, once again, thanks for watching, and
until next time, matane.
Thanks for watching that video on that flip through of the Venom book with me and Shawn, aka Japan Book Hunter. You can follow Shawn on YouTube. You can also follow him on Instagram. And if you're looking for any books from Japan, japanbookhunter.com. Yeah, that's all the things you'll need for him. All of those links are down below. And for my part, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. And I promise you, if you listen to my podcast, Direct Edition, which is now gearing up for season 3, you will enjoy it. And if not, I'll give you your money back, but you're not paying any money. So find all the links for that down below. Arigato gozaimasu, West Coast Davengers.